Hey, what is up guys, and welcome to Model Me Quick, the very first video here. This is just a quick series to show you a bit of the modeling techniques that I use when making products, and to give you a general idea on how modeling works. In Blender, that is, of course. So without further ado, let's head into Blender. So for the past 3 years of my education in product development, I chose Blender to make most of my 3D models and to do my 3D visualizing. Now I wasn't taught Blender, I was taught SolidWorks, as I've mentioned before. But in my opinion, Blender is a lot quicker for drafting out concepts real quick. Because, you know, most of the things we do at product development are things like styling or making mechanical working principles or figuring out how things look for a user and how a user would use our products. And, you know, we do a lot more than just thinking about technical stuff, about thicknesses of edges and fillet radii, and you know, a lot of technical stuff is not really important most of the time. We just think about general shape and general use of things. And now you can do all of these things in SolidWorks, but I think it's a lot slower because you have to constantly be thinking about dimensions, and you have to be thinking about how you build your assemblies to see what's dependent on what. I don't know if you've ever used SolidWorks before, but for quickly drafting out an idea that you have, SolidWorks really isn't the tool, in my opinion. Now, and I got the question quite a few times. The question, what's the difference between SolidWorks and Blender, and how do you model in Blender? But this is a little bit of a tough question to just answer. So that's why I'm doing these Model Me Quick tutorials. Sometimes I'm gonna explain what I'm doing. This time I'm not. I'm just giving you an overview of some shapes that I made based on some sketches that one of my friends made at school. And I tried to choose some shapes that are modelable in SolidWorks. Well, most things are modelable in SolidWorks. Not everything though, but still. But they just work a lot faster when you make them in Blender. Not just for building the geometry, but also for scaling things, stretching things, changing proportions of things. You don't have to think about sketches and about how your model is made up. You just grab what you want to change and pull it in the direction you want. I think that's one of the biggest differences between Blender and SolidWorks regarding modeling, is that in SolidWorks you have to think about a sketch before you can change the 3D geometry. For example, if you make a cylinder, you have to make a sketch of, for example, a rectangle that is rotated around one axis, and you have to change some of the measurements just to get a different look, just to get a different looking cylinder. And if it still doesn't look right, you have to go back into the sketch again. And that's just the cylinder. If you're working with more complex surfaces, then you've got a lot of different sketches going on, and it gets messed up quite quickly. While in Blender, if you want to change something, if you want to change the proportion, you just grab the points that you need and drag them to wherever you want. And that goes really directly. There's no errors, there's no thinking, there's no rebuilding process. It just goes really quickly, and you immediately see what kind of changes you're making. Now, it's not all that easy. You need quite a few shortcuts, and you need to know some of the different tools that you can use. But still, I think with the basic tools you can get quite far. So that's just extruding vertices and using some of the basic modifiers. One of them is the subdivision surface modifier that allows me to do what is called in the industry sub-D modeling. So that allows me to get really nice complex surfaces without having to use too many 3D sketches or really complex geometry, just using a control cage made out of different points, edges and faces, and then just have the software smooth out between those surfaces. And that allows you to create really complex surfaces really quickly. Just change them on the fly and not having to go into the dimensions and all that kind of things. You don't want to be messing with that. You just want to look at the shape, look at how it works, look how it fits to the hand, how it fits to the user's body, how it fits to your sketches that you've made. Now, coming back to the models that I've made here, I just wanted to make a quick render. I'm planning to do this on every Model Me Quick tutorial. And here, since I didn't really make any real products, I just decided to render them on a table and use a material that I made earlier. It's a little bit more of a complex material, but it looks exactly like the polystyrene foam that we use to make models. So that's a blue foam that you can cut. You can use saws on it, files on it. You can sand it with some paper if you want. But it's quite a difficult material to work in still, because it's on one hand it's a really tough material, really hard material that is really hard to cut. But on the other hand, if you press with your nail a little bit too hard, you've got a little dent. So I thought it'd be funny to make a material that looks exactly like this foam, and I can just make any 3D model, render it out just as if I spent hours and hours sanding and filing away at the blue foam. I lit up the scene with a simple HDRI that I got off the internet. I used just some textures that I found on Polygon, which is a great site for finding photorealistic textures. And then just rendered it out. I didn't change too many of the settings. Didn't want to go too complex. Rendering took about 10 minutes, 10.5 minutes. I could make this quicker if I changed some of the settings and lowered some of my samples. But I think with the default settings it works just great, and using some of the denoising that's in the new Blender 2.79 version, there's pretty much no noise. After rendering, I took it into Photoshop and just changed the exposure a little bit to have a little bit more of a contrasty image. And I definitely advise you to do that as well. You can use Photoshop to fix a lot of your rendering problems, to fix ugly looking materials. But well, this is the results that I had. So all in all, rendering all of these models and doing the materials and the rendering took me a little bit over an hour, not counting render time. So it took about an hour. I don't think you can do this in SolidWorks, definitely because you have to use surfacing commands for some of the shapes that I made. I hope you liked it, and I see you again at the next Model Me Quick. As I said, these are just some quick videos that I do to show you a bit about how Blender works and how things go regarding modeling and a little bit rendering as well. Next weekend, it's Christmas Eve, and I've got a little bit of a special lined up, and I hope to catch you in that one. So, bye!